Maybe you are a well-seasoned Toastmaster and quite experienced with the former legacy curriculum as well. Another member might be brand new to the organization. Do you have questions about where to begin, but feel overwhelmed with what seems like a daunting amount of information? Dave Bones, Division H Pathways proponent, is honored to be the District 7 Pathways Component Committee. He is passionate about helping members to get started in pathways with more confidence and ease. Please welcome Dave with his speech entitled Toastmasters for Speaking Professionally Pathways to Tutoring Session. Yay, Dave, welcome.
Thank you, Madam Toastmaster. Welcome, fellow Toastmasters. It is such a pleasure to speak with you here today. And as mentioned in the introduction, this really is for two types of folks. One is that person that is experienced in the legacy curriculum, probably for many years, maybe even a DTM. As well, it's for that new Toastmaster that's kind of trying to get the lay of the land. What I'm going to share with you today, some of it might be review. And what I would encourage you to consider within this material is if you already know this, maybe you can share this with somebody else. And that's something we like to do in Toastmasters is just offer that helping hand when it's needed. Speaking of topics, the first topic we're going to cover is logging into Pathways. You might be already signed up with your path, but if you haven't done it a lot, it's like, how do I log in again? We're going to review that for those that is information that could be helpful with. Secondly, we're going to talk about completing a project. This is critical. Without this skill, we simply cannot progress in Pathways. We're going to talk about a very important topic, evaluation forms. Some might say that evaluation is perhaps one of the most important things in Toastmasters, and these forms are a way to facilitate that. And then finally, some of you might be struggling with, okay, I know how to log into Pathways, but sometimes I get lost. We're going to talk about ways to navigate within Pathways. First, I'd like to cover just a few basics. Again, this is very well could be review, but just to make sure we're on the same page. What is Pathways? Pathways is the main Toastmasters International Learning Curriculum. Okay, well, then what is Basecamp? Aren't they the same thing? Well, not quite. Basecamp is the online platform that Pathways uses. And then finally, we talked about this word project. A project, this is just like in the legacy curriculum, we talked about our speeches. That's what this is for the most part. It includes the speech as well as any other tasks that are required for completion and credit. This point, I just want to drive home as much as we can. I'm so pleased to hear that so many of you are actually logged in and enrolled in Pathways. Because in my view, until a member actually enrolls in Pathways, they are locked out of the Toastmasters education. But on the other side of that, when a member does enroll in Pathways, the entire Toastmasters curriculum is now open to the member. And this is more true than it ever has been. When it first rolled out, Pathways, you had to do one level at a time in terms of your projects. Now you actually can pick and choose your various levels. For example, I have 3 patents that I'm working on, and it just so happens I'm working on level 3 for this particular project I'm doing right now. So let's answer a few basic questions. Again, this might be review, but hopefully it will help to just solidify some things or maybe encourage helping another member. How do I log into Pathways, as we mentioned? Well, first thing you want to do is go to toastmasters.org. That's at the top of the page. And then a little bit further down on the right there, we click on the login button. Then you'll see this open up where it says member ID or email. I use my email address. You can also use your member ID. You type that in. Of course, you put in your password just below that, and then you click log in. Then you'll see that tab outlined with that red arrow, Pathways, because we can do many things at toastmasters.org, but we want to now log into Pathways, so we click on that, Pathways, right there. And of course, we probably remember we're in Pathways. We know the curriculum, but where are we going to? Oh, yes, we want to go to the online platform, which is called Basecamp. So we go to Basecamp. And then we reiterate this. If you're a Basecamp manager, you'll see two buttons there, but we're going to be clicking on Go to Basecamp. And guess what? We are now logged into Basecamp. Yay! Woo! Excellent. I'm giving you all a hand. Next question. I just gave a speech. This is a question I had from another club. I just gave a speech. Someone in the club evaluated for me. What am I supposed to do to get credit in my pathways? Well, I thought it was an excellent question. Then I realized, actually, this is really about the larger subject of how to complete a project. And you probably remember the project is basically doing your speech and the other requirements to get credit. So what we first want to do is get into Basecamp, as we just discussed how to do that. We logged in, we're now in Basecamp, and we click on Paths in Learning. Paths in Learning is kind of your curriculum, like your set of projects that you'll do and learn from. Then, of course, you can see one of my paths is leadership development, and it's an entire curriculum. So naturally, when I look over it, oh, that makes sense. We're going to open the curriculum. So that's what we do. We open the curriculum. Now we're actually in the curriculum. And let's say if I was just getting started, I wanted to do my icebreaker speech. So the icebreaker is my project. And you can see that I've got a button called Launch. So Launch will start that project. Once you start the project, this opens up what's called a project window. It's a pop-up window that comes up. You can see there are four red arrows. The upper left, it just refers to an arrow button going off to the left. It's also called a chevron. Returns to the previous page of the project. The upper right, advance to the next page. And then a little bit lower, sometimes you'll see a little section where you can click on back or next. That's some additional navigation that might be required within a given slide. And then finally, off to the right, you'll see something called directions. That will let you know, what am I supposed to do here? You can click on directions and it will clarify it for you. Now, where I'm going to go next is you can see that there's a whole plethora of material. And looking at all that, you might say, this is hard for me to keep my equanimity. But what I want to do is give you the simple approach and encourage you that actually to complete a project, there's only two things that you need to do, even with all of those things listed. Now, am I suggesting that you only do these two things? No, definitely not. I would go through all of it. It's all very good material. But in order to complete your project, you only have to do two things. The first one is to access your evaluation form. Once you do that, by clicking on that section there, you'll go to what's called evaluation resource. Now, that sounds like a fancy word, evaluation resource. What does that mean? It's just your evaluation form. That's all it is. It's just the wording that they decided to use. And that, of course, you will give to your evaluator, like I have done with Linda tonight. She'll be evaluating me, and hopefully when she has a chance, we'll fill that out and email it to me afterwards. And my contact information is in the chat as well, with some other things, not just for my evaluation follow-up. Then the second thing that is required, and this is actually the most important thing to be able to complete the project, it's called assess your skills after. So those are the only two things. The first thing is make sure to engage with your evaluation. Secondly, assess your skills after. Once you do that, you'll come to this screen where you do fill out your assessment of your skills. Go through some questions, and you see again at the bottom there where it says back and next, you'll keep clicking next, next. And once you do that, you'll get your results. This is your feedback, kind of a before and after Then it's like, okay, well, I guess I have finished that section. And then you'll see this, congratulations. You have completed this project, ready to advance to the next project. And that will bring you to, when you come back to your base camp, you'll see next to your project. In this case, I was working on the icebreaker. With that red circle, you can see a check mark. That means I've completed it. That's how I know that I was successful in what I just did. Now, we did mention evaluation forms. I just want to drive another point home, and I promise I'm not doom and gloom, because if I put out some doom and gloom, I promise I'll provide a solution. But let's just put out something that, just to offer a little gravity, if you will. Without using the evaluation forms, it certainly can be fun to get together. But a member is actually not learning in the Toastmasters curriculum if we're not using these evaluation forms. The good news is, evaluation is the crux in Toastmasters, meaning perhaps the most important thing. When you do access these evaluation forms, you get that critical aspect of learning within the Toastmasters curriculum. It's just like, snap your fingers, you're in Toastmasters, you are learning together. Next question, where do I find the evaluation forms? It seems, again, it's hard to keep equanimity with all these choices going on. The evaluation resources, as we call them, and really you and I know that that is just the evaluation form. Where we find them is, first of all, within the project. That's what we just went through. That first aspect, the one of two things that are required to complete your project, that was from the project window. It's within your project, right where we showed you by clicking on that evaluation section there. Now, the other part, this I think really offers a wonderful way to not only find your evaluation for the project you're working on, but this speech evaluations tab, which we're going to show you how to get there, is amazing because it literally has every evaluation in Pathways, every level, every path. We're also going to show you how to fill out these forms and how to save them. Linda, this will be probably new for you, and I'd love to hear your feedback if it was clear how to do this. Now, this is a point of clarification that I think is needed, especially for those of you that were learning Pathways early on from maybe the ambassadors. There seemed to be some confusion going on where you were thinking that we had to upload these evaluations to Basecamp in any stretch. And I just want to share that you are not required at all to upload or even save your evaluations. I mean, I save all of mine. I have it all organized in my computer, but that does not affect your ability to get credit in Pathways. So I just really want to emphasize this point, because I literally know a club that, let's just say, has gone through some serious struggles because they're trying to almost fit a square peg into a round hole, trying to put this technical thing on these people that are not very technical, and it's actually not necessary. He's trying to teach them how to upload all of their evaluation forms, and it's not even needed. It is literally just a matter of download the form, fill it out, email it, you're done. Okay, now this is within the project window, as we discussed earlier. That should look a little bit more like review. And that was the evaluation resource we talked about. Now here is the other one, the speech evaluations tab. This is from the home screen in Basecamp. What is so cool about this, as mentioned, is that this gives you access to every single evaluation form in Pathways. Now, in order to help the person you're evaluating, what we need to do first is download the form. I use Firefox, so I just happen to point to my little download button. And of course, you can do it with whatever browser makes sense to you. Once we do that, it now becomes fillable. So you'll put in the name, evaluator, date, speech title, and other items that are required and asked for a little bit lower in the form. But now we're not done yet, because until you either save as, or print as a PDF, that information will not be retained and you will not be able to send that to your evaluator. So that is the final step that we want to take with that. Finally, we're coming to a close here, but I wanted to give you some additional Basecamp navigation terms and tips. So the first thing I want to share are the top 4 navigational tools in Basecamp. The first one is what's called the fast access toolbar within a project. This allows you to get anywhere, anytime within a project. That thing at the bottom where it showed that plethora of materials that you could click upon, but we decided in that first screen to click on the evaluation and then assess your skills after. That was the fast access toolbar. It's an up arrow and it gets you anywhere, anytime within the project. Now, the next 3 things I'm going to share will get you anywhere, anytime within Basecamp itself. The Home tab, perhaps the most important. Paths in Learning. Paths in Learning is where we access our paths, our learning material. Tutorials and resources. This one is a little bit more technical. You could actually wait on that, but if you are feeling like you want to dig into some of that, feel free to do it. It can definitely be helpful. But I would learn about the Home tab, which gets you home anytime you need. And then the Paths in Learning, you'll be there a lot. And then optionally, tutorials and resources. There's a little button or a little arrow pointing to the fast access toolbar. There are those 3 tabs we talked about: Home, Paths in Learning, tutorials and resources. A couple of quick terms. We talked about opening the curriculum, which is your path. Activate. Sometimes you'll see that. What it does is it engages your project. It's like you haven't accessed it yet. We need to kind of get it going. And then finally, launch actually starts it once you've done that. So if you think about your car, you turn on the accessories light, the key is partially turned, that's activating it. And then launch starts the engine. And this is just what that looks like. We're opening my leadership development path or the curriculum. We've activated this project, write a compelling blog. At that time, I did not do anything with that, so I had to activate it, of which then I could launch this project. To recap, we've talked about how to log into Pathways, talked about how to complete a project, talked about the evaluation forms, where to find them, how to fill them out, save, print them, and then we talked about some navigation within Basecamp.